From Interfaith Alliance, this is State of Belief Radio. I'm your host, Reverend Welton Gaddy.
Seek the Lord who wills to be found. Call upon the Lord who draws near.
That's Reverend Nancy Wilson, one of the many and diverse religious leaders who participated in the National Prayer Service Tuesday in Washington, D.C., a traditional religious ceremony at the National Cathedral with the newly inaugurated president and vice president in attendance. I'm singling Reverend Wilson out today because only a day earlier, Barack Obama included a first-ever reference to our gay brothers and sisters in his second inaugural address. The president's language of inclusion was framed in spiritual and moral terms. And as moderator of the Universal Fellowship of Metropolitan Community Churches, the Reverend Elder Dr. Nancy Wilson oversees the largest LGBT organization in the world, and one which has been committed to serving the spiritual needs of LGBT persons since its founding by the Reverend Troy Perry in 1968. Troy is a good friend who's been on this show, and I am delighted to be able to welcome today Elder Wilson to State of Belief Radio. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful. I'm an admirer of your work.
Well, thank you so. What was it like? And I'm going to repeat them because they're just so important. What was it like to hear the president say these words in a context of a moral and spiritual imperative? Our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law. For if we are truly created equal, then surely the love we commit to one another must be equal as well.
Well, of course, that's extraordinary, and I think a little bit unexpected for us in that context, and just, I think all of us, the LGBT community and our families and friends, felt that kind of emotion and a little stunned when he mentioned Stonewall, which was so wonderful, and I loved I saw CNN later and saw Anderson Cooper explaining to David Gergen what Stonewall was, and I just loved that, that the president was using this moment and really to push the envelope, especially obviously around marriage equality, obviously around human and civil rights for LGBT people. And that was just so powerful. It was unequivocal, and he said it with a kind of moral authority and passion, really, that I think was just so heartfelt and something, as we say, he didn't have to do, but he did, and it will make an enormous difference, and it is already making an enormous difference building up to this.
Yeah. Reverend Wilson, you know your people well.
Yes.
What do you think, what did you think of regarding the look on their faces and the feeling in their hearts when they heard this?
Oh, absolutely. People wept and cried. People said they sat in front of their television, or if they were, at the inauguration, just really, really amazed at the emotion, what it feels like to have a leader, the leader of the free world, really the leader of our country, be so unequivocal and so passionately committed to this. Yeah. And it was just, one of those amazing moments. We were all on a high from it.
Sure. Well, now let's move from the inaugural platform to the streets, and let me ask you this: what would you hope to see in terms of concrete changes in this country that would turn the president's words into action?
Well, probably one of the most significant things is DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, that really needs to be repealed or sufficiently undermined. I know they're trying to, in some sense, take away pieces of it, but DOMA is really the impediment, to marriage equality in the United States. And also, I think we're hoping that the Supreme Court, as it takes this up, will also help move things forward.
Right.
And I think the other thing is immigration is very important because this impacts our community as well. I want to say this, that as leader of a church that is worldwide, we see that immigration issues impact LGBT people as well, and so this is very important to us. And I think the other thing is the violence, especially that young people often experience when they're bullied, and also that transgender people experience in our culture is still, the stigmatization is still quite heavy.
Right. I'm interested to get your answer to this question, and then I want to ask you about your answer. But is the religious conservative, some would say the religious evangelical part of Christianity in the United States, is that group the only real obstacle to marriage equality?
Probably yes, I would say, because, you see inroads being made. You see, like Roman Catholics tend to be very supportive of marriage equality, even though the Roman Catholic Church is not.
Yeah.
You see tremendous movement in the Black Church, maybe an exception among evangelicals. But even among evangelicals, I think increasingly there's a softening on different sides. And then there is the hardcore, where there's still hateful rhetoric, or at least, no way, especially on marriage equality. I think it is primary. And, there seem to be generational issues, but I think those are intensified by people's religious identification.
Yeah. Okay, here's the question that goes with it. What role, and be as specific as you wish, but what role do you see for progressive religion in the struggle?
Well, we really need for progressive voices of faith to be as unequivocal as the president, and to say, it's not hedging about this, it's not avoiding the issue. The progressive voices of faith really have to take that prophetic risk and edge. And, we've seen certainly many ways in which that has happened and improved. But I think progressive voices of faith, and you're just such a powerful example of that, just need to be very, very clear and very firm, and sometimes very loud, because the other side has often a lot more resources and economic resources, and but we do have our voices. And I think churches that will do that are what people are looking for. Churches that have courage, I think.
Yeah. On Tuesday, I was in the service at the National Prayer Service at the Cathedral. I observed with joy. I think it was the most diverse interreligious such event I have seen. With you, Reverend Dr. Anderson, Imam Majid, Cardinal Wuerl, Saprit Kaur, Rabbi Schoenfeld, and so many others. Two questions. What did it feel like to you to be a part of that? And second, what does a moment like that offer to the world?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think one of our commitments as MCC is to be in very diverse ecumenical and interfaith settings. I think that's where the action is, especially interfaith work, because it's where the pain and the wounding and the things that need to be healed. And I think people are so encouraged. When people see that diversity, it gives them hope. It makes them realize, religion can be a force for good and peace and justice, or it can be a force for violence and intolerance. And those of us from the progressive and ecumenical and those willing to do interfaith work are the ones saying we can be a force for peace and for justice. And I think that, and it provides this strong, also moral support for the president and the vice president and what they're doing.
Right. Reverend Wilson, my guess is that you stay on the move at such a pace that there's very little time for reflection on what has happened. You were here for all of the inaugural ceremonies, and then you went on with a busy schedule. But as you went, what was especially significant or memorable for you?
Well, I think, first of all, being in that cathedral, I was installed as moderator of MCC 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, what I experienced on Tuesday was still not imaginable.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have imagined in 2005 that this could happen and that a president would be this unequivocal and that I would be invited from MCC to participate in this traditional service.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing was looking out in the, in the congregation, and there were lots of MCC folks there. And to see, and my partner of 35 years, and to be together in that place was really almost surreal, I have to say. And yet, when I stood up there took a breath, it was really realizing, oh my gosh, whenever you're the first to do something, and I've had that experience as others in MCC, there is a kind of moment of just where you feel humbled and grateful and like I'm glad I lived this long to see this.
Yeah. Well, I'm identifying with you in saying this. I think what happens to me is I do this work like you do every day, and sometimes the days end with not a lot of happiness and some pessimism, and it just reminded me that change is possible in this country, and just what you said, dramatic change is possible.
Yes.
Well,
Yes, and it takes leadership. That's what it takes.
Yeah. Reverend Elder Dr. Nancy Wilson is the moderator of the Universal Fellowship of Metropolitan Community Churches, a global denomination that for 44 years has brought a saving message of inclusion to LGBT persons of faith and to many others. Elder Wilson, I want to thank you for taking time to step out of another meeting and visit with us on State of Belief Radio. I wish you continued success in your ministry, and I hope we can talk again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity.